Let's go JavaScripting! Hi everybody and welcome to another exciting edition of Boring JavaScript. I'm your host, the Virtual White, aka Mike Smith, and today we're talking about proxies. Oh man, I've been waiting for almost a year to do proxies. I think the original proxy video was going to be like video 55 or 56 or something like that. But while I knew what proxies were, I really didn't know why we would ever use them. Until the last couple of months when it suddenly dawned on me how absolutely important and wonderful proxies could be. So today I'm going to show you what a proxy is, which is real simple, but more importantly, why we would want to use one. So you want to see how they work? Let's get started. So what is a proxy? Well, according to the Mozilla Developer Network, a proxy is, and I quote, the proxy object allows you to create an object that can be used in place of the original object, but which may redefine fundamental object operations like getting, setting, and defining properties. So what does that mean? Well, basically it means that the proxy is a go-between between an object and the consumer of that object, which is basically a variable. So when that variable says, I want to be able to get some information or do something to that particular object, the proxy is going to say, well, hold on a second. There may be some things I need to do to that before I let you have access to that particular object, because it's a go-between between your variable and the object itself. Let's take a look at some code and it will clear itself up very quickly. Alrighty, got some code here. Here is the proxy definitions. Very easy to use. It's a new proxy and it takes two arguments. The first argument is a object that we want to target. It's called the target object. The second argument is a handler, and this handler is a series of key value pairs in which the key is the certain operation that is going to be intercepted from the variable to the object, and the value is the function that gets run when that happens. So I have an object here. In this case, it's going to be an animal object, and this is from a animal class here that I've got. It's got some simple, data points there. We've got some simple options here, methods, doesn't really matter, who cares. But I got an animal object here and I'm doing a my cat. And normally what you would say here is, constant my, cat equals new animal, whatever in this case. But what I'm actually doing now is I've created the animal case and I am now going to have the proxy saved to my cat. So my cat is actually a proxy, right? Well, kind of. The thing is here is that my cat, from my cat's point of view, once I create this proxy, it still thinks it is connected to animal. So when I do my cat.name, it's going to get the name of the animal class. If I do my cat.position, it's going to get the position of the animal class. If I do my cat.moveRight, it's going to do the moveRight method of the animal class. So the proxy is kind of it's very difficult to see because it's just a simple little go-between, but it's a very important go-between, because what happens is that whenever I do anything to my cat, whether it's to get a property like I'm doing here, to run a method, if I'm going to set a property, which we'll show you here in just a minute, what will happen is that the proxy will say, well, okay, you're getting ready to do something. Let me see if I got a handler for it. And so we'll go to its handler code at the top there, which I'll show you here in just a second, and say, do I have a handler for the operation? Like, do I have a handler for getting a property? Do I have a handler for setting a property? Do I have a handler for constructing an object? Do I have a handler for getting all of the different keys? And if I don't, well, I'm just going to continue on doing, just pass it on straight to the animal object and it will do whatever it wants. But if I do have a handler for it, then I'm going to run a special function. Now, let's take a quick look at that handler. Now the handler there's a bunch of different handlers, like if there's the construct handler for constructing objects. If you wanted to create a new property on the object, there is one that will intercept that. This particular one here is a handler for getting a property. So whenever I want to get a value of the property, like I am right here in my cat.name, or right here from my cat.position, or actually even right here, my cat.moveRight, the get handler will execute. So it encounters myCat.name, and when it goes out there, the proxy says, whoop, oh, hey, I've got a get handler, so I'm going to run this function here. So this function is run. In this particular case, I'm checking to see if the property is named, and if it is, I'm going to send it back as an uppercase. Now, I'm not changing the value. The value is still fluffy. All I'm doing here is reporting the value as uppercase. So I'm basically manipulating the value of the, let me rephrase that. I'm manipulating the value of the object or the property here and sending that off to myCat. Now the actual value is still its normal self, but I'm just reporting it as something different. So in this particular case here, I am using this function here to change the perceived value of this particular property. Now, I'm only checking name here. If I don't get a name, I'm going to do a reflection to be able to get the actual value of the original object. Now, what's a reflect? Well, tune in next week, because next week I'm doing a boring JavaScript on reflect. It's going to be a lot of fun. But the bottom line here is that I'm going to access name. It's going to run that get property. And it's going to say up, it is name, so I'm going to return the uppercase of the value of Fluffy. I'm not changing the value, I'm just returning a different interpretation of it. Position, it's going to say up. I'm just going to do the general reflection of the value that is within animal. Move right, this isn't name, so I'm just going to do the general method for moving right. So that's really it. That's really all there is to it. So the proxy is in between the actual object itself and your variable, so that whenever your variable does anything to that object, it intercepts it and can do certain things. So you want to see how it works? Well, let's flip over to Node. And let's type in Node Proxy. And my cat's name is Fluffy. See? There it is. It is now in uppercase. The actual value is still in the upper and lowercase, the mixed case that we had before, but now the value has been reported as uppercase because the get handler for the proxy reports it all in uppercase. And this shows you that it didn't do anything to position. It just kept position the way it is. I could have changed position. I could have, for instance, doubled the value, that I'm moving, or it doesn't really matter. So that's the get. Let me show you what a set would look like. In a set handler, let me just bring up the code here. A set handler, comma, set, I just noticed a little mistake there, property. The set handler is what will be called anytime I try to change a particular value. And in this particular case, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, hey, if the property happens to be type, and if that type, which I'm reporting inside value here, here's the, and whoops, meant to do this here, is that this is the target, which is the target object itself. This is the property we're taking a look at, and this is the value that we're changing it to. If the value is included within this particular, or not included within this particular array here, send out a little error message. Otherwise, just change the property value itself. Very simple. But again, it will operate any time that we try to change the value. So if I go down here and I try to change my cat.type to gorilla, it should give me the error, right? Right? Well, let's find out. Let's clear the screen off. Let's go to Node Proxy. Boom, yep, we can only accept cat, dog, and fish. And notice, it did not change it at all. So everything still works. I mean, I'm not getting any kind of errors or anything, no exceptions thrown or anything, but it did not change type. So let's test to make sure it actually does work. So instead of saying my type is gorillas, say my type is dog. And so I'm now changing my type to be equal to dog. It's going to trigger this set handler. And I'm going to say, is the property type? Yep, it sure is. All right, is dog included in cat, dog, and fish? It sure is. So therefore, it's going to set the property, or it should. Will it? Let's find out. Let's just type in Node Proxy. And yep, it sure did. It changed the value to dog. So that's one of the things you can do with a proxy, is not only use a get handler to be able to manipulate data before it gets sent back to the variable, but you can also do validations Real simple and real easy. Now, I know what you're saying here is, hey, Mike, I could have used a setter function to do validations, and I could have used a getter function on a private variable to return an uppercase. So what good will the proxy do for me? And that was been my question for the past year or so. I'm sitting there going, okay, this is all great, this is all beautiful, but why would we ever want to use this? Aha. Well, I figured out a really important reason that you would want to use proxies. We'll show you that next. So let's take a look at what a proxy can do for you. I've got a library here, or an object actually, that represents a library that you can get off the Ethernet. It allows you to create an animal and then pass that animal to 3 different methods that throws prefixes and suffixes onto the name. I mean, yeah, this is a very important method, very important library. So to consume it, we just, do the import, then we do the create animal, and then we do the zoo.name with prefix, then we suffix, and with both of them. So if we click over to node and type in node zoo, yeah, look at there, did exactly what we expected it to do. But then management comes in and says, something, something, something. We'd like to have the name reversed. Well, we can't go into zoo. This is a library, so we can't go into zoo and change create animal. So we do the quick and dirty method because, it's our internal application. We can do things like this, it's no big deal. And again, this is not the right way of doing it. This is just, again, an example just to kind of show you what a proxy will allow us to do. So what we're doing is we're changing the create animal method. We're overriding it to be able to return the reversed name if we pass in the name. So now that we're returning the reversed name, if we flip over to node, the name is reversed. Everything is nice and happy. Bad code, but everything is nice and happy. So the management comes back in as they want to do and change it again and say, now, we want both versions on here. Well, now you're in trouble because this creates the reverse method, and now you can't use zoo.createAnimal to get the normal method. And if you take rid of this, you're not going to be able to get the reverse method. Well, what are you to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use a proxy. Yay! Let's comment out the original code so we can kind of contrast and compare the code. So here is our new code. Here is our proxy. And in this case, the proxy is going to intercept an actual function. Now, in our earlier video, we intercepted the object itself, and we used a get handler to be able to get the method, get the properties. But now we're going to intercept an actual function. And this proxy is going to say, okay, when this proxy is activated, we're going to call create animal, and we're going to do the reverse name get proxy. Ooh, isn't that cool? And so what's going to happen is within our handler, we're going to use the apply handler. And the apply handler is used to trap function calls. And so it's going to trap the function call to create animal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the args argument, and I'm going to extract the name and type, because that's what I'm passing is the name and the type as 2 arguments. And then I'm going to call the original function, which is what the target is. Remember, here's the target, zoo.createAnimal. So my target is going to be the original function call, and I'm going to reverse the name and call the type. So all I'm doing here with this proxy is that I am reversing the name. That's it. The name is still being passed in as fluffy, but I'm reversing the name. So if we save it and go click over to node, and we do my zoo, yep, it's reversed. So how does that help us? Oh, wait, we got that, but how does that help us? It helps us because notice what we have, one thing we have changed here. These 3 lines are exactly the same. Zoo, name with prefix. We compare it with the original one, zoo, name with prefix. But what has changed is this. Instead of calling zoo.createAnimal fluffy, now we're saying mycat equals createAnimal reverse fluffy. And so that's going to call the create animal based upon the proxy itself. And the proxy is going to say, okay, I've got to apply the create animal method to this proxy here so that I can do whatever magic I have to do. So now, if you want to be able to reverse a name, then all you have to do is call create animal reverse. Well, how about the original way? Well, just call it the way it originally was. Because the fact of the matter is as opposed to last time where we changed the actual zoo method. We didn't change the zoo method this time. We basically added a proxy over to it. So now cat can change the reverse name by saying create animal reverse, while dog here is just going to call the original zoo. The original zoo has not been touched. So if we save this, flip over to Node, let's take a look at it. And yep, sure enough, Fluffy is still backwards, but Fido is correct. So that's the wonderful thing that you can use proxies for. So if you have libraries out there that you can't change, that you need to have something special done to it, you can always use a proxy to intercept the calls through those in any kind of methods or any kind of properties on that particular object, depending upon what you want to intercept, to be able to do any kind of manipulations. And another thing, and this is where I really got the aha moment a couple weeks ago, is when I was running unit tests with it. So if I got a unit test that's if I'm testing a class and I got to call out another class, but I haven't worked on that other class, I can run some sort of proxy on that other class to be able to say, okay, I haven't done anything on this class yet, so I'm going to have a proxy there to return fake data back. Now, if you're using a framework, that would be something called, stub, basically. But if you're creating your own unit test type deals, then you can use proxies to simulate events being returned, not events, but data or functions being returned from another uncompleted method inside unit tests. And so that just made the unit test so much easier. I could sit there and say, okay, I'm going to test this particular object here, but I haven't created, it depends upon this other object, but I haven't created this other object, so I'm going to create proxies to this other object, which is blank right now, so that I can return the data that I need. So that's the wonderful, wonderful thing about proxies. If you need to intercept data into a particular object or a particular method or whatever without having to touch that original object or method, use that proxy to get what you need. And that's all there is to using proxies. I hope you enjoyed our video. Hope I didn't bore you to death. Please make sure you click on the like button below and subscribe to this channel for more updates on Boring JavaScript. You can see all of our videos at www.boringjavascript.com or see everything we have at www.thevirtuoid.com. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you later.